Hey folks, today I'm going to take you through how I tie the Alphlexo Crab. I start with a J60 size 6 Gamakatsu hook and put on a bit of a thread base. Nearly all of this video is sped up to save you time, so don't expect to tie it this fast. I can't tie it this fast. And then I try and flatten out the thread as much as I can. You'll see later this thread is a Semperfli nano silk in 100 denier. I'll show you that. I go up to past the bend in the hook because that's about where we're going to tie in the end of the body, and then all the way back down to and including the slanted section behind the eye. It's going to tie in there as well, and I leave the thread just near the hook point. Now I've got some small 1/4 gram dumbbell eyes. These are some cheap Chinese sort of brassy nickelly eyes. It doesn't really matter. They just need to get the thing to sink, and I use 2 of them, one right beside the other, with the first one there starting right near the hook point and the next one on the eye side as close to it as I can possibly get, and I just tie them both on in a standard fashion. They'll be covered by the body, so it won't matter too much if they're not perfect, but get them as tight as you can, and we're going to super glue them in. Now I like a bit of a hot spot. It doesn't really matter if you don't put a hot spot in, but I use either some egg yarn or in this case a bit of UV sort of dubbing, some stuff that I found. So I'm going to take a bit of super glue and a small portion of that dubbing, and for the hot spot I'm going to put it on the top side of the crab. Just tie it in there. Doesn't have to be perfect because again it's going to get covered by the body. And the UV light there was just to show you that the hot spot actually is UV sensitive. Then we'll move the thread up to that far point in the bend in the eye because that's what we're going to tie on one end of the body. And then for body I'm using 1/4 inch tubing. We're going to see that in a minute here. This particular tubing is a desert camo pattern. It looks a bit like a rattlesnake, but I've also used white and plain tan. It doesn't really matter. Make sure you've singed the ends of the tubing with a lighter so it doesn't unfray too badly, and pre-flex it a little bit like I'm doing here to help form the body a bit later. Now it's fiddly and it takes a while, and you just have to struggle here and try and get that body up and over the eyes without the hook punching through the side of it, which you'll see happens right there, and I've got to go back a bit. That's normal, happens all the time, but just work your way around till you get it right over the whole show there, and try and leave the hook eye inside of the body. Next part here I reckon is pretty critical. When you cut it off, don't cut it off too short, and be sure to singe the end. Now I actually think I cut this one off a bit too short, and you'll see it starts to unravel a little bit later when I'm trying to tie it on. But if anything, cut it a bit long. It's pretty cheap. Now be very particular here, and I've slowed the video right down to try and pull the thread back down the body tubing a little bit and not leave it right out on the end. See how I've popped it inside of 2 of the pieces there, and then I can pull it tight. And the reason for that is when we go and trim it later, I won't cut the thread, right? If it's right out over the end and you try and trim all those burn ends off with a pair of side cutters, you're going to cut the thread. So pull it really tight here, and that's why I use the Semperfli nano silk. You can pull it extremely tight. And then I use a fairly big whip finishing tool that I made myself out of a piece of wire, and give it a couple of whip finishes there as tight as you can get, because you just don't want that to slip around. So put it on there as tight as you can get, knowing we're going to trim those little burn ends off later. Then this is really quite hard. I wrap the thread around my finger so I've got something to pull on, and then I try and get the body tubing as neat as I can over the eye of the hook, and here's where you can see I think I cut it off a bit short because it's starting to unravel. I put a wrap on the body tubing, and then I push up with my right hand and pull back with my left hand to start cinching that down, pulling as tight as I can to get that body held on there firmly. And then I just trim off the end and whip finish it the same way I did before. You just try and get a little bit of a bubble in there. It doesn't have to be too big, but do the best you can. Again, 2 whip finishes. Make sure they're nice and strong and tight. All right, and we'll cut the thread off. The next part is to trim the burn ends, particularly off the hook, around the hook eye, but also I like to do the other end as well. I'm just trying to give the body a little bit of shape here as best I can with my thumbs. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just do the best you can. Then get yourself a pair of sharp little side cutters and start trimming the ends off. This is much easier when you take the thing out of the vise and just do it in your hand. I've only got it in the vise here so I can show you kind of what I do. And take your time. This takes ages. Just take your time, work your way around both the hook eye and the other end. You'll see I took it out there and finished the job by hand. This is what it looks like at that point. Now I'm going to use a little bit of Solares Bone Dry and cover those whip finishes. Don't overdo it here. You particularly don't want to block the body tubing because we're going to have to stick a piece of wire through it in a minute. And you'll see I struggle with that a little bit because I think I put a little bit too much of this glue on and it seeped down the body tubing a bit. But here I'm just sealing up both ends with that Solares Bone Dry. Now for the next part, I think this is pretty critical here. I've got some hairline ultra chenille in micro white. White or light tan I think is best, and a piece of single strand fishing wire. I think this is around 40 or 50 pound that I've folded in half and I use as a pull through. It's much stronger than say a bobbin threader and works great. Now cut a piece about 180 millimeters long. That's 2 times 90, and the reason you do that is if you cut it too short, it's impossible to tie these knots. So cut it about 180 millimeters long, fold it in half, tie a knot for one of the claws at the midpoint there, and make those loops pretty small. So you see I tease the knot up there so that the claw doesn't really need to be trimmed much later. It's quite a small loop, and then just pull it tight, right? So we'll use the cut-offs for this for 2 of the legs, so don't be worried that you cut it too long and you're wasting any. We cut it 180 millimeters long on purpose. Right? Now we're going to take the wire and thread it through where we want the claws. Now I tie them on the near side, and you want them preferably above the midpoint of the eyes so that they're on top of the fly. And the reason for this is as it sinks, they're going to act as drag, and if they're on the bottom, they're going to want to try and flip it over. So put them towards the top and find as good a spot as you can up close to those threads where you can get the wire loop in. And this is where I think I put a bit too much glue on and some of it's closed up those eyes, but eventually I find a spot there and I put it through as close to the hook eye as I can and pull it out as far to the back as I can, just on the top side of the rounds of the lead eyes, right? So just try and get it as high on that fly as you can. Then you open that loop up and push the 2 tag ends of the first claw through, just so they're just through, and then you pull through as ready to go. You pull that back through the body, and this works great, this technique. It's very easy. Pull that right the way through, even up the ends, and get that knot right up next to the body. You actually don't want these claws too big. They can't tangle. And this is where if you've cut the chenille too short, this knot's impossible, but 180 mil seems to work great and gives you enough tag ends that you can use them both for 2 of the 3 back legs. So tie your second knot and push that knot right up close to the body. Again, you don't want these claws sticking out too far. They'll only tangle on things. So you see me tease that knot right up next to the body. I only have a 1 or 2 mil either side when I'm done here. All right, pull the knot tight and then trim the second claw and keep those 2 cut-offs as they'll become 2 of the 3 back legs in a minute here. Also, obviously, cut the other claw so it's open and ready to go. Now, you've already got 2 of the 3 back legs done, so just cut another piece from your chenille and make a 3rd leg about the same length, right? They don't have to be perfect. We're going to trim them anyway. So there's 2 of my 3 ready to go. Now, with the 3rd one already cut, I've got a bundle of 3 now, right? And we're going to put them through as the legs at the back of the crab. Again, we want the crab legs towards the hook point side of the hook, not the bottom. And initially here, you'll see I've made a little mistake. I try and get this loop in, and I do eventually get it in. Again, I think a bit of the glue seeped down there, but I left this mistake in there on purpose so you can see why I changed it. Now, when I put this wire loop through and get through to the back, what you're going to notice when I turn the vise towards me is that the wire is towards the bottom of the crab, i.e. closest to where my fingers are at the moment. And I don't actually like that because that creates drag when the fly is sinking and wants to try and flip it over. And you can see it's below the lead eyes there. So I move it and I bring it closer towards the hook point side of this hook, i.e. towards the top of the eyes. It's not perfect, but it's good enough in this case for me to get these legs in. And I put all three through at exactly the same time. I don't try and space them out or anything like that. This is a very small crab. They look just fine if they all go in together. So finally I get that through about in line with the rounds of the eyes. But it took a little while, and don't be surprised if it takes you a little while to get it right. So once that loops through, put all three of your crab legs into that loop at the same time. Just even up the ends so that they're a little bit easier to get in and lined up. And I think it takes me a couple of goes to get these all in together, but if necessary, just pull the loop through a bit further, open the loop up and hold it open with your fingers and shove all three of those legs in. Make sure you get them all in together, right? You only want to do this once. Once they're all through, pull them up close to the body, and then so that it's not too hard to pull through, just get them pull them out a little bit so that the ends are pretty close, right? Just enough to get them through the body. Give it a good wiggle. Pulling three legs through is a little bit tougher, but not impossible. And then you can start to wiggle them, straighten them up, and align them how you want them to look like legs. You want more, if they're going to be uneven, put more towards the hook point end, not the eye end, because as you strip this fly, obviously you're going to drag it from left to right, as you see in this picture, and it's better to have the longer pieces trailing out the back, not being dragged along on the front. So that's pretty well it, ready. All the legs are pulled through now, and I'm going to use a neon Sharpie. This is the one that actually is UV sensitive, and colour in the claws. Now I normally take the fly out of the vise and do this against a bit of paper, but I sacrifice my finger here so you can see what I do. Basically just colour them all the way around, as much as you can up to the knot. And I tend to only do that on the claws, but obviously you can colour in whatever you want here. I did on this particular fly take a lighter tan colour and also put some barring on the legs, and you'll see that in a minute. But for now, what we're going to do is singe the claw points and also the legs. Now I'm only going to do the eye side here because getting at the other end that's in the vise is a bit tricky, and I'll do that with the fly in my hand out of the vise off camera. So you'll just see me singe the legs there. Be ready to blow them out if they start to catch on fire, because you can easily burn them too much and lose the legs. So just be ready to blow it out. Now here I've taken it out of the vise, done the eye side of the hook as well, and you also see I use my narrow tan, my tan Sharpie to put some barring on the legs. Now for the eyes, I've got some cheap mono eyes. You can make them yourself. I think they're out of about 30 or 40 pound mono. I take a pair of side cutters and I put a taper on the eye so that it's easier to push through. So just put a nice little sharp point on it there, maybe a bit sharper than that. And when I push it through, I try and get it as close to the knot in the claw as I can, and preferably right through the middle of the two strands of the claw, so that when I glue it, the glue will glue to the chenille and to the mono. So you'll see me push it through there right near the knot in the claw, and again I try and put it right through the two strands of chenille. Next part here is a little bit fussy, but I'm using a bodkin or a piece of wire or something to try to keep the mono inside of the crab body until I get it as far back as I can, so that's coming out the back rather than out the top. And that's just me trying to get as much as that eye inside the body as I can. You don't have to be that fussy, but I like to try and get it out near the legs. So again, when I glue the back, it sticks to the chenille a bit as well, which is going to provide a bit more grip. And then do exactly the same for the other mono eye near the other crab claw, right? So again, put a point on it, try and get it in between the two bits of chenille so it's got something to grip to, and push it out as far out the back as you can. Just leave it sticking out the back for now at both ends. We'll tidy that up in a minute. The next part is to start gluing all of the legs and eyes and stuff together. So once I've got it in shape and I wiggle the legs and claws around till they're about exactly how I want them to look, then I'm going to start gluing it. And you can spend a bit of time here trying to get it right. Now for this glue, I'm happy to use a flex glue with the hope that it'll be a little bit more resilient to getting pushed around. And I put that glue, I start on the back legs on the bottom side, and it's trying to stick the chenille legs to the body tubing, right? That's what you're trying to do there. Do that on both sides. So again, I'm just using a UV light to set that glue off. Then we'll come around to the front and start gluing the claws to the body tubing. These stick pretty good because there's knots in them, and I go right across the eyes here and everything, so I'm gluing the eyes to the chenille and the body tubing, and the claws are being held in place as well. I do the same on the back where the eyes and the legs meet the body tubing, glue all that together. Then I get a pair of side cutters and I trim them off, and I leave about 2 mil sticking out the back, right? So don't trim them off right next to the body, because I've found that you can make the eyes much more secure if you use a tool. In this case, I happen to have a cauterizing tool or a thread zappet tool that has a hot tip on the end when you press a button, and I melt the ends of those mono eyes and form a little hot ball, which I then push in with my finger into the body tubing, acting as a bit of a lock to stop them from coming forwards. So again, you'll just melt it there. Try not to melt the body tubing, but just the ends of the mono eyes, and then you can get them to stick against the back of the body tubing and further secure them in place. And at that point, your entire fly is pretty much ready. There's nothing left to do here other than clean it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Again, there's my Semperfli Nano Silk.